Hey guys, what's up? It's basically Horror Reviews, here with another, horror series ranking video. The previous one I did was on the Guinea Pig series. This one I figured I'd be a bit more festive. I'm going to rank, in my opinion, what I think is the worst to best ranking of the Leprechaun series, considering St. Patrick's Day was this week. I'm a bit late on it, but oh well. Before I actually get into this, I just want to say, these videos are not, I don't know if these videos are going to continue to be something I produce. They're mainly something, I'm producing at the moment just because I am really depressed. There's a lot going on. There's been a lot going on in my personal life, and now we have everything that's going on with this new epidemic, and it's just kind of completely drained me of any motivation to create any kind of content for my channel. So I'm kind of forcing myself to make these kinds of videos. Not that I don't like making these kinds of videos. I do like having a, just some time to talk about a series that I'm actually familiar with or that I've been into for a while. But, to be completely honest, I kind of would prefer to have the energy to be able to sit and actually review a movie. But for the time being, I just don't have the emotional energy. This is going on too fucking long, and I hate it. Either way, let's just get into this ranking video. Alright, starting with the worst in the series. Now, the Leprechaun series is a series I have been a fan of since I was very, very young. I remember seeing Leprechaun 3 on cable when I was really young, and it scared me. And then, I remember, my parents renting it from Hollywood Video on VHS. I remember my parents renting Leprechaun Back to the Hood when I was really young, right when it came out. And I watched it, and I really liked it. It's a series that I would usually almost always watch with my aunt and uncle, who actually recently passed. On St. Patrick's Day every year, we would at least watch one of them. So, yeah. But, like I said, I love this series, and to be honest, even though this is worst to best, only one entry in the series is in my opinion, a bad movie, or not worthy of seeing, and that is the first spot on this video, Leprechaun Origins, which was produced by WWE as a reboot prequel to the series. They had the dwarf wrestler Hornswoggle play the Leprechaun. The big problem with Leprechaun Origins is that it's basically just a backwoods slasher film. The Leprechaun in the film is kind of a weird hunchback, almost kind of Hills Have Eyes, and or maybe Descent-looking kind of monster. Apparently this thing has been messing with this town for years and years, and they can't kill it. It's immortal, but then the main character in this movie kills it very easily by no magical means whatsoever. It's really just a complete betrayal of the series, and even if you, take a step back and look at it from the perspective of, well, this is a reboot, you shouldn't compare it to the other ones, but if you're gonna call it Origins, then why call it Origins at all if you don't want it to be compared? And also, even as its own thing, it's a very, very subpar kind of backwoods exploitation type movie. I haven't even told you the plot. The plot has to do with a bunch of teenagers going to this town in Ireland, and they encounter the Leprechaun. It's really nothing too amazing. Now, for the rest of these, I enjoy all of these very much. So keep that in mind with this ranking. Next is Leprechaun Back to the Hood, the last one they made before the long hiatus, which resulted in, I think about over 10 years of silence before Leprechaun Origins came out. Leprechaun Back to the Hood, basically, Leprechaun is back in the hood again. How Something I've always appreciated about the Leprechaun series is how inconsistent the series is. The rules for the Leprechaun himself always keep changing, what he's weak to, and how he got killed or trapped or captured or whatever at the end of the previous movie. It has no correlation to what happens in the next movie, and the same thing applies here. This one has to do with essentially a group of people finding his gold, and then they start to spend it, and eventually he goes down around and hunts them all one by one. There is a really great scene where the Leprechaun smokes pot with this guy, and when the guy turns out to have one of his coins, he like stabs the guy with the bong, which is just such a beautiful, beautiful moment. And it's just so much fun. I recently rewatched it on like New Year's Eve with my cousin, and we had so much fun with it. It's just a very enjoyable movie in my opinion. Up next is Leprechaun in the Hood, the one that came before it. This one is an interesting one because it's the fifth in the series. It features rapper Ice-T in the cast, and there is quite literally a scene where the Leprechaun and Ice-T are sitting there smoking pot together. And Ice-T says, and the Leprechaun says to Ice-T, "A friend with weed is a friend indeed." This one has to do with, I'm pretty sure, a drug dealer gets his hands on, and the drug dealer being Ice-T, gets his hands on the Leprechaun as a statue, and then I'm pretty sure some people rob him. It's been a minute since I've seen this one. Some people rob him, steal the medallion off of the statue, and he comes to life again. I'm pretty sure that's wrong. Either way, in the Hood, again, fucking stupid, ridiculous, not even necessarily a good movie, but a very, very fun, entertaining movie, and I honestly wouldn't trade this series for anything in the world because it is such an interesting, all-over-the-place, wild-ass series of movies. Up next, we got Leprechaun 4 in Space, which is widely considered to be one of the worst ones of the original series. I kind of really like it. I used to not like it, but after rewatching it about a year ago, I actually really like Leprechaun in Space. It's fucking bad. It's really bad. But it's got, some cool body horror moments. I remember there's a scene in particular where a guy gets injected with, spider DNA, and he turns into a fucking, humanoid spider creature, and then he explodes. This entry in the series, as well as the third one, were directed by Brian Trenchard Smith, who is an Australian director, probably most well known for his exploitation films he did in the 80s and 70s, or I know he did stuff in the 80s. Movies like Turkey Shoot, which is really, really great, kind of dystopian, late stages of capitalism, kind of Most Dangerous Game type movie that is very, very violent all over the place, very fun, as well as what's the other one he did? I think he did Dead End Drive-In, which is another really interesting one, having to do with, basically, drive-in movie theaters being converted into maximum security prisons, which is a really interesting concept. Up next, we got Leprechaun Returns, which was a great return to form for the series, and the first time that somebody other than Warwick Davis was the Leprechaun, and it's actually the movie turned out to be something that was good. This was one of my favorite movies from a couple years ago. I remember watching it when it came out and being really, really wowed by it. I was absolutely just amazed by how, of quality the film was, which is kind of weird to think about. But I was also just kind of wowed. I had a major, major nostalgia trip. There's a lot of really good practical effects in the film. The guy playing the Leprechaun isn't as good as Warwick Davis, but he's trying. You can tell he's really, really trying. The film is trying to do what the most recent Halloween film was trying to do, which is be a kind of direct sequel to the original, retconning all the other sequels, which, to be honest, all the other sequels have nothing to do with the rest of the series anyway, so it doesn't matter too much. But it basically has to do with the daughter of Jennifer Aniston's character showing up at the old farm where the first film is set, and Ozzy is there. The fat guy from the original Ozzy is there, and that's always really cool. And he kind of warns them about stuff, and then they accidentally wake up the leprechaun on the property, and he starts killing them all one by one. It's a very enjoyable movie. There's definitely some very weak moments, but I really, really enjoy it. I really like it. I love it, honestly. And it's, definitely one of the better entries in the series. It was directed by, I can't remember the guy's name. I think it's Steve Krasinski, who was one of the directors in Astron 6. He was also one of the two guys that from Astron 6 who went on to make The Void, which was a really cool movie. But either way, up next, the third best of the series is probably Leprechaun 2. This one, again, no connection to the first one. The first one, I think, was like in the middle of fucking nowhere, probably Kansas, maybe. No, it was, I have no idea where the original was set. But the original was set in the middle of nowhere. This sequel is set in, like, LA. It has to do with this young man who does a kind of haunted, tourist trap kind of tour in a hearse with his uncle. And one night when his uncle is too drunk to do the tour, he has to do it for his uncle, and he accidentally, and it results in him waking up the leprechaun. And, well, actually, I think he just happens, no, his girlfriend is like the great-great-great-great-great-great-great-granddaughter of the woman that the leprechaun was going to marry in, like, the 1600s. And that's how it gets connected. However, he does get he's awoken from a tree on, like, Harry Houdini's private estate for some fucking reason. I remember a homeless guy is, like, the one to see him walk out of the tree, and he, like, takes the homeless guy's whiskey, and he's, like, pissed off because it's not Irish whiskey, and he throws it to the side, which is just so good. It's so fucking good. I love these movies. But basically this one has to do with the leprechaun attempting to reclaim his bride that he lost so long ago. And it's very fun, very creative. One of the kills I will always remember in the film is the scene in particular where one character traps the leprechaun in order to get 3 wishes from him, which this is another very inconsistent rule, because in this film, iron bars can kill the leprechaun or hurt him, and they trap him in a big cast iron safe. And one of them is, and somebody's attempting to get him to grant wishes, and he wishes for the gold. Well, the gold ends up inside the guy's stomach, and as a result, the guy fucking dies, and, well, he, wishes the leprechaun out of the stomach, out of the safe, and then the leprechaun cuts him open and takes the gold. It's not as explicit as it sounds, but just the idea of it is kind of uncomfortable to me. I don't know why, but that scene in that movie has always really made me uncomfortable, and really, just kind of gotten under my skin. The second best in the series is probably the original film. It's fun, it's goofy, it's kind of it's not necessarily gory, but it's got some pretty bloody moments. I remember this is the first one in the series, or at least one of the first ones, where I was actually really into it. I remember, like I said, seeing the third one on cable once, and it really scared me. And I was really afraid of the leprechaun until my aunt and uncle, God rest their souls, until they showed me the original, and showed me specifically the scene where the leprechaun is obsessively fucking shining shoes, which is just something that I found to be so funny, and it's another great inconsistency in this series. But yeah, the leprechaun obsessively fucking polishing shoes that they're throwing at him. Basically, a family buys the old Grady farm where the guy who lived there ended up capturing a leprechaun. The leprechaun kills his wife. He traps the leprechaun in a crate in the basement and attempts to burn him alive, but has a stroke and ends up in the hospital, and the leprechaun is stuck in the basement for like 10 years. And then they let him out, and the person who lets him out is the fat guy, Ozzy, who has all these stories about seeing UFOs and stuff, so nobody believes him. And then stuff starts to happen. People end up dead. There's a really great one-liner at the end, "Fuck you, Lucky Charms," which is one that I've always appreciated as one of my favorite one-liners in any horror film. And yeah, the original Leprechaun. It's just so goddamn fun, and it is, you know, if there's one in the series that you absolutely have to see, it's probably the first one, because it's, out of the original series, not including, you know, Returns or Origins, out of the series, that one's probably the most high quality in terms of its production. However, the best one, in my opinion, and the one that I grew up on, I've watched the most times, and I think just about anybody would agree is the best in the series, is Leprechaun 3, where he is in Vegas somehow. A homeless guy who has trapped the leprechaun by putting a weird fucking medallion on him and turns him into stone, sells the statue to a pawn shop owner, who then takes the medallion off the statue because the medallion is the reason he bought the statue. Even though the homeless guy told him, don't take that medallion off the statue. The leprechaun comes alive, terrorizes him. A young man who is traveling to go to college in California passes through Vegas, ends up stopping by that pawn shop, and he... No. Well, some stuff happens. He ends up attempting to pawn his grandfather's like Rolex, and he goes to the pawn shop and encounters the leprechaun and takes one of his gold pieces, and that gold piece gets kind of tossed around between everybody at the casino he goes to, and the leprechaun just goes around and kills everybody who has his gold. It's classic. It's beautiful. It is something that I will never, ever get sick of. And just talking about it right now, you know, makes me a little melancholy, and it also makes me want to watch it. So I think that is what I'm going to do. Anyway, guys, that's it for this one. This is Biscuit Blue Horror Reviews, signing off. Peace.